everybody. So today I wanted us to explore color. That's going to be the name of the game today. I hope you enjoyed the two previous sketchbook challenges that I've made. And I hope you joined in, and if you didn't, remember that you still can. I'm grabbing a few different things here today, and I don't have any sort of like medium that I think you have to use. I think it's really up to you today as to whether you prefer working with watercolor, colored pencils, gouache, mixed media, really whatever it is that kind of tickles your fancy. But the name of the game today is color. And if you've taken my color collector class, you know that color is one of my favorite subjects. Sometimes it's also one of the trickiest, and that's why I wanted to play with color today, because the more that you become comfortable with experimenting with color, the more you're going to be able to tap into color palettes that speak to you and that are slightly more complex, perhaps, than what you may have started out with when you were starting out. I know that my color palettes have changed a lot over the years, and sometimes on like Instagram or even different Skillshare classes, people will talk about finding your color palette. And while I think there's an interesting idea behind that, I think that it can also be a trap, because a lot of people, the way that they interpret that is you have to find a set of colors that you really love and then build your entire artwork portfolio around that set of colors. What that does do, it's true, is it creates a very unified vision of your different pieces. However, I do think that it's boxing us in a little bit. And I think the less boxes that we have, especially in terms of creativity, then the better it is. And I think expanding our horizons and trying to understand that it's not about a single mix of colors, but rather how you understand color and how you like to mix them together. And that can create completely different color palettes. But what are the mixes that are interesting and inspiring to you? And so the only way to figure that out is to really explore the range of possibilities. And the thing is with color is it's an infinite palette. Obviously, like inherently it's infinite. So that means there's an infinite number of combinations. And that means also that there's an infinite number of palettes, color mixes that can be you. So that's kind of the thought I want us to keep in mind for today. For our experiments, we're not trying to hone in on one specific thing. What we're trying to do is really to explore, to experiment, to have fun with color, find mixes that surprise you, others that you hate, others that you like, but not box yourself into a specific color scheme. All right, so why don't we get started? I'm gonna probably use a bunch of different materials today. I have these, which of course you've seen a bunch of times in some of my other videos. I'm going to be using also some colored pencils, but I'm also going to be using some watercolor. I hope the music isn't too loud. I'm just reaching for some watercolors here. Oh, actually, I hear my my heater. I'm just gonna turn that off because that's gonna be a little annoying. All right. So obviously there are also, color palettes that you, especially with watercolor, and if you, buy watercolor handmade paints where the palettes already come kind of pre-made, and that's super fun. I kind of like that when I don't want to be bothered with the choice of colors, or if I simply am pulled to work with that color palette that specific day. That's one way that you can, you know, reduce your color choices. But I'm also going to, I think what I'm actually going to do with my watercolor is show you that you can create your very own mixes as well. And again, if you haven't taken my color collector class, that's definitely one that I recommend if you want to really do a deep dive into color mixing. This is one of my oldest watercolor palettes, my first watercolor palette, and it's Winsor & Newton. And honestly, I didn't reach for it very often because when I started out, I didn't know much about color mixing, and this specific palette of colors is not one that I was drawn towards. However, once I got a little bit more familiar with color mixing, then I realized this is a really good palette for mixing your very own colors. So yeah. And I have actually, this was my swatches for that one. I did use the alizarin crimson a lot. So yeah, we do have sometimes, you know, colors that we go more for than others. But to start out, what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a pencil here. Darn, where are my pencils? Ah. Oh, by the way, I decided to put music in this video because after the poll that I sent out wanting to know if you preferred music in the background or not, 75% of you pretty much, or maybe even more than that, said you liked music. So I'm going to be doing these with music in the future, and then maybe once in a while I'll do them without music for those of you who prefer not to have it. I'm just going to create a few little frames here. And honestly, I think you can do whatever you want. They can all be the same size, and they can all be different sizes as well. I just think it's kind of fun to switch things up a little, so I'm just gonna have a few different options. This is not something that you need to spend a lot of time thinking about. Really just... Okay. That's a lot. I might not actually use this many. We'll see. All right. Let's get started. So, I'm really just going to grab a color that speaks to me. And if you have no color that speaks to you, just grab one and start with that. And so what I want us to do in this case is really just to enjoy the colors, spend some time observing them, spending time with them, as though they were dear friends. Or as though, you know, they're acquaintances turning into friends, and you want to get to know them better. I'm really not thinking about which colors I'm picking. Just very slightly, what does my gut say? What do I want to reach for? And it doesn't matter if you even mix different media. That's a really pretty brown. It's like a black brown. It's like a burnt umber. and watercolor ink. It's kind of fun. All right, let's go for another one. If the time it takes for you to fill out one doesn't match exactly the time that it takes me to fill out one, that's totally fine. Just work with what you have. So these two reds that I chose are actually quite similar, but this one's slightly more orange. And then this one is slightly more bright red, so it has a little bit more blue in it than this one. And that's super interesting because look, when you put these two colors together, because this one has a little bit more blue, the orange quality of this one really comes out, and so it almost looks more like a coral. And that's a really interesting characteristic about color that I'm not even sure if I really mentioned it during my color collector class. I think I may have not added that video in because of a technical problem. But one of the things that's really important with color is the colors that are next to your color are going to have a huge influence on how you perceive each one of the colors. So even though you lay down a color once, depending on what you're putting next to it, it might take on a different tint or hue. And that's super fascinating, honestly. Because it kind of like expands the possibilities even more. Why don't I reach for one of my watercolors just so I do a little mix here. This isn't watercolor paper actually, so I'm probably gonna try to avoid doing huge blocks of color, but I am gonna try to blocks of water, I mean. This is a nice viridian green. It's a really soft, beautiful green. I'm gonna use some of this, which, as you can tell, my colors are a little dirty. I'm not the cleanest of painters, and I think that's totally fine, because when you're doing color mixing, it actually can sometimes add a little bit of complexity to your colors. So I'm okay with it, is my point. Since I didn't clean my brush, there's a little bit of that yellow and a little bit of that green that came and mixed itself up with this blue, so it's nice. It gives it kind of like a different shade. May have used a little bit too much water here, and that's fine. A lot of cars out there right now. Sorry about all the beeping and honking and all that. I'm trying to make this a little bit more pigmented, just so that we have that nice contrast between this darker color, the blue, and then the lighter green and the lighter yellow. So you've noticed actually, for all of these, I've pretty much only used 3 or 4 colors. If you haven't done that, that's fine. But if you don't know how to start out, that can be a really good kind of rule for yourself, is just to set out with 2 or 3 colors per little exploration. I really like this dark green, and I think that would be nice with this sort of appley green. Oh, it's funny, it mixes. Huh. Wouldn't have thought of that. So what if, just so you can see, what if I stay within one color palette, as in one color family? Like, let's say I just mix a ton of different greens together. Some gray greens, some dark greens, some light greens. I really like that. That's a really nice color family right there. All right, let's go for something completely different. Let's use some pink. That's one I don't often use. And for this one, I'm actually gonna mix a bunch of different colors. I've done kind of different blocky shapes in this one, but who said we had to do that? You can also just, you know, make color scribbles, and that's fine. Again, I'm not thinking too much. And this one I'm just playing around with a lot of different colors. Order in which my pencils go has gotten mangled. That's all right. Okay. Let me explore one of these. Ooh, what about the silver? I'm gonna go for like an emerald green with that. I really like this mix actually, and so for example in this one I'm just going to keep those 2 colors. I realize I've not done one with just 2 colors. Okay, I just told myself a funny random story. For some reason this made me think, I think because of the green maybe, it made me think of a crocodile, as though this is like the crocodile mouth and the body. I mean, it has no tail I guess, but yeah. I wonder if you can see that actually. So I don't know if you've noticed, but one of the things that I like to play around with is having a muted color with a bright color. So for example, you know, a bright red next to a more muted brown. And that kind of creates a fun contrast. Again, that's not a hard rule though. You can of course create an entire painting with just bright colors. And that can also be super fun. Or just muted colors. That's a really fun mix. It's sort of blue with the yellow and the silver. So I'm just gonna do one of those things that I never do, which is, because I don't often create paintings or works where the colors are all super bright. But I'm gonna do it, just to see, challenge myself. So that's a super bright orange, right? I'm gonna go with like a bright yellow as well. And do we have a bright green around here? I wanted kind of an apple green. Ah, that one's kind of muted actually. Not as bright as I'd like. Okay, what if I went with this green actually? Because that's a pretty bright green. So in this case, for example, I used a very bright color palette. There are no muted colors here, but one of the ways that I brought in more contrast is through the complementary colors. So that's one of the, I guess, the takeaways is that there are many ways to find contrast within your colors. But if you don't experiment, if you don't explore, then you're not going to become familiar with what those possibilities are. I'm also going to use some white here, if this pen still works. It's an old one. Nope. My white Posca pen is dead. Looks like even this one is dead. And it's full, it must have just dried out. Darn it. Alright, I wanted a white here, because I realized I haven't used any white. So, maybe... Here's a white, and here's another white. This is a chalk white. I'm going to use a very pale yellow with this white. So here I'm going to try something that's a little bit more soft. That's a really lovely color palette as well. And you see, this is super pastel in comparison to this one, and I didn't realize it at first, but then I realized as I was doing it, I'm actually using very similar colors here. Simply in this one, it's more the pastel versions of the color, and in this one, it's the super kind of intense versions. So even the same colors used in a different way, can convey a completely different mood. This muted one is kind of a little bit more magical. You kind of have to look for the shapes a little bit more. And this one is kind of more in your face, right? So that's super fun. All right, why don't we try another one with many different colors? So that was one version. I'm gonna try a different one, slightly different colors. I'm gonna do it over here. And you know what? In this one, I'm also, even though in all of these I filled up the entire square or shape, I'm going to leave some of the white on this one. And the reason I'm going to do that is simply to show you that you shouldn't forget that the white of your paper is also a color. And so that also has an influence on how your artwork or your piece, the mood that it's going to convey. So just remember, the white of your page, it's not just some random, I mean, of course it's your surface, but it participates in your color scheme. So that's why some people, for example, will use colored papers as a background, and that makes it obviously really clear that you have a color in your background, but white is too. And there's a difference, for example, between the white of the paper here and the white that I added with this this chalk pencil. So, you know, even within that, it can shift. You know what I'm realizing is I didn't do many explorations with blue. So yeah, when you start realizing like you filled up your page, try to get a notice, like try to notice, I mean, which colors you may have been ignoring without meaning to, and then try to incorporate those into your next ones. So, is there any that I really haven't used? I guess orange is one that I didn't use very much. So, I had my bright orange over here. Where'd it go? Ah, here. So I'm gonna go a little bit. This end is almost dry, so it has a slightly different feel to it than the really crisp, clear end of it. But again, it's funny. It's almost like this one, it really has a lot of orange in that red. So what if... incorporating some white spaces as a fourth color in this one. The composition of your little mini pieces here is not that important to me. This is really just an excuse to really just kind of observe how these colors can mix together. However, there is one thing that I do want you to notice as you kind of create your own little mini compositions, is notice how the different percentage of each color has an influence on your overall piece. So, for example, in this one, I have a huge swath of blue. It's almost 50% of my entire piece. So there's kind of like a half-half balance between my blue and then my oranges. Another example, this one has more 2/3 red and 1/3 of this sort of muted brown. How does that feel different? In each one of your pieces, what about the ones that have a big mix of different colors? This one has still a dominance of this bright purple. It seems to kind of jump out the page because the other colors are smaller in size, but they're also a little bit more muted. In this one, however, they all have pretty much the same surface area. Is there a color that jumps out? I would say yes, but the one that jumps out is the yellow, because all the other colors have a similar level of grayness to them. So the value of that color, of the other colors, is darker, and so this yellow is what jumps out. And so that's a similar thing that's working here. So yeah, I mean, if that sounds like really complicated and you don't really know what it is that you're looking for or how to understand it, I would simply say, take each one of your little creations, look at it individually, give it a few adjectives maybe. What's the mood? What's the atmosphere? How much do you like it? How much do you not like it? Each one of these is an opportunity to learn what it is about color that you like. I only have 2 little ones left, and I think I'm gonna do something. I'm just gonna go through the colors of the rainbow just to make sure that I've not forgotten any. So yellow, I have a good amount of yellow. Orange, reintegrated that one. Red, purple. Purple is one that I don't have much of. Blue, green. Yeah, so blue and purple are maybe the 2 last ones that I'd like to add a little bit more. So what if, for example, then, I took all my blues and my purples. Oh no. Okay, let's see that. No. That's fun. I really like that one. Oh, something else I'm now noticing as I look at all of these. I have a lot of them that have a lot of saturated colors and not many that have these muted color palettes. So I'm gonna try to make something a little bit, not muted, sorry, pastel, which is actually also muted technically, so yeah, that works as well. So I'm just gonna go for something a little bit more subtle, more pastel-y. Maybe I'll do a lot of things with the similar value. One's a little bit lighter. Just to show you how when you create something with low contrast, it kind of all melts into each other. I could use silver. Oops, sorry, didn't realize that cut off. I just finished creating this one using a very low contrast color palette. So all the colors have similar values, which means that when you squint your eyes, you can't really tell which color is which. It just looks like one big gray flat surface. Which is important. It's important to know that that's also an option. If you also look at this one, when you squint your eyes, it also, these colors, even though it's much brighter, much more, much darker than this one, it still looks just like one big dark gray blob. Whereas some of these other ones, there's a lot more color contrast. So where this lighter green, I can really make out these two huge shapes. This one here. So it's really fun to play around with that as well, the different values of your colors and seeing how that can impact your piece. Let's do one more. One thing I want you to kind of note also here is which ones you really enjoyed and which ones you might want to explore a little further. I have to say, out of all of these, there are a few that I quite enjoy. I really like this blue, yellow, gray, which is a surprising color palette for me, and that I wouldn't mind exploring. I really love this orange and blue contrasted one, and I really love this mix of many different colors with the pop of purple coming out. So for this next piece, we're going to kind of isolate one of the ones that you liked and just explore it a little further. I also really like this little purple one. Okay, so I think I'm gonna choose this one. And I'm not saying that we're reproducing it, okay? I'm just saying that we're using that as our starting point. So that was this sort of pinky purple, my yellow, and a white. Is that it? Blue, yellow, oh, and some gold. All right, that's a fun little mix right there. It's not because this piece is any bigger that I want you to panic anymore. So literally just start out with one of your colors. There's no right or wrong here. We're really just exploring. And in no way do you have to stay stuck to the composition of your last one. It's really more the color palette. And I might change the proportion of colors. I might have a different one that is more prominent and other ones that are a little bit less important. And that's fine. Like personally, I have to say this I already absolutely love. I think this is a really surprising color combination that I've never done before. And that's fun, you know? And so since they are quite muted, these red things are really gonna pop out. And so I'm gonna keep them small in size so they don't overpower the initial color scheme. Ooh, I like how that pulled some pink out. If you at any point decide that one of your colors you want to drop it from your exploration, like, who knows, I might not add this, that's totally fine. Again, these are just experiments to try to get comfortable with exploring our color palettes. Yeah, for me, this one's done. I already like it at the way that it is. I like the color proportion, and I find that it's a super interesting color palette. And so this is the thing that I just want you to notice. I started with this color palette as my starting point, but look how different this is simply because I removed 2 colors. This one and I think a blue one. Yeah, I actually removed, I think it was this one. Is that the one? No, it's not the one, but something close to that. Maybe it was this one. Yeah, I think it was that one. And look how different that looks just because I removed those 2 colors. I'm gonna make another one where I'm gonna reintegrate every color from that palette. Whoa, I didn't realize I was using my 4B pencil. That's already way darker. I have to say, I love these pencils. They're like woody Stabilo pencils, and I don't know, they're just so fun. I guess because they're so chunky and they flow so nice. See this gold? See how the fact of putting it next to this purple has brought out kind of the green color from it? That's a super fun discovery. I'm pressing lighter on this one, which is making the value of it slightly lighter. So that can also give a sense of greater depth. So this stuff is coming forward more, and that stuff is receding a little bit. All right. Oh, you know what? I forgot my blue. I'm gonna add that in. It's gonna be fun. Oh no! I just realized that you can't see what I've been doing! I'm sorry! So sorry about that. I was so absorbed that I didn't even realize that you didn't see what I what I was making. But in this last one, I basically integrated all the colors of the this one that I was exploring. We're going to do one last one. And so you can decide to continue exploring this one color palette by either removing colors or even adding new ones in. Or you can try one of your other mini color palettes. I think I really enjoy this orange, white, and blue. So I'm going to try to explore that. And I'll just put the music on again. But we're going to move to the next one. There we go. So the colors that I'm working on for this one is this, the dark blue, and the, what was it? Oh, and the yellow, which I think was this one. And the white, of course. I'm gonna double check. Oh, no, actually that was the marker and that was this pencil. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to keep the same composition, I'm just going to play around with these colors, play around with the proportions. And the reason I'm making these all like a little sketchy, if that makes sense, like I'm not spending a lot of time on each one, is just because I don't want you to get too distracted with the, you know, details or that kind of thing. It's really about exploring what color can do for us when it's in different shapes, different proportions. And honestly, just to have a nice hour of exploring color together. That's the main reason. Of course, that doesn't mean you can't play around with composition a little, but I just mean to say is that if it's not something like that you consider beautiful or whatever, that it's not a big deal. That's not the point here. It's really just to get comfortable with this exploration of color. Oh, I forgot there's the white as well. So I'm gonna... Oh, has the music stopped? It has. Let me find another tune. I think I'm going to leave a bigger percentage of white. I'm going to cover this up. Yeah. I quite like that. I'm just going to explore something else. What if I simply added a little pop of color on the frame? That's fun. orange on this blue is really interesting too. It makes it even darker. I'm bringing in a little bit more value contrast in there. I don't know if you've noticed, but I guess in these sketchbook challenges, we've been doing a lot of things that are kind of in little rectangles inside our sketchbook. And I think one of the reasons that I wanted us to do that is just because, like, even on Instagram, you see a lot of pieces that are just like, and even on my feed, where it's just a single piece per page. And I just kind of wanted to break away from that notion and just remind ourselves that, you know, a sketchbook is meant to be messy. It's meant to be a testament of our explorations, of our mashing things together. You know, it's like I would say like a messy kitchen. You know, when you're throwing ingredients together, you know, there might be flour on one end and sugar on the other end, but it's kind of like a testament to the joyful mess that you're making. And that's kind of what I hope that you'll take away from these sketchbook challenges, is allowing yourself a little bit more freedom, a little bit more fun and playfulness in your sketchbook, and remembering that it's really more just about connecting with yourself, the moment, and what it is that you're doing when you're showing up in front of your sketchbook. So I hope you enjoyed these little explorations. I know I had a lot of fun with these. And remember that you could do this again and again every day, and you would get different possibilities, different things to explore. So yeah, it's a short way of maybe getting yourself to get creative every day. Tell yourself, today I'm just going to explore a little color palette, and I might do it a few times in a different way, or I might do a bajillion little different ones, or I might explore one in greater depth. There's a lot of ways that we can keep having fun in our sketchbook with our colors and with ourselves. Thank you so much. Love you. Bye.